Welcome everyone to Inside the Majors. My name's Garen Batten, and with me today is our Commander-in-Chief, Mike, which I think means that gives you immunity is what we've learnt this week, Mike. So thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome. I am excited to put out my first hit.
Today we're going to go through a fairly similar format to last week. We're going to talk about the Majors survey that's just been released for everyone to have their say on the future of the series. I have an interview with the current Atlantic Sportsman Championship leader. And then we're going to do something which is a bit new for me. I've this week been sent a pair of gloves from Sudspeed, which is a company here in Australia that does sim racing gear. So I'll be giving a bit of a road test, for want of a better term, for those gloves that they've sent me. So yeah, stay tuned for that at the end. As I said, start with the survey that's just been released to all the Majors members and Majors 24 drivers. So could you start by giving us a bit of a general feel? What's the purpose of the survey?
So to back up even just a tiny bit before that, obviously in the majors, we have sort of a certain ethos. It's something that I talk about a lot within the competition committee. We have a certain way we want to go about things. We want to run the most prestigious and iconic races that exist or have ever existed. And so basically we want to do real world races and we want to kind of honor and celebrate those. Now, how we do that is largely dependent on how people are feeling and how things are going. And so the survey helps us determine that bit of it. They help us tell us if we're going in the right direction, give us ideas for things they would like to see us change. We get great ideas every single year, but the purpose is just to make sure we're on the right track and that the people that we're actually serving are happy.
And so what sort of influence can the survey have on the structure for next year or further into the future for majors? For instance, iRacing have community voting on circuits for particular leagues and stuff, which they run through the forums. Is it that sort of idea, or is this more just to get ideas and food for thought for the competition committee?
Right. Wayne says it best when he says that the majors is a benevolent dictatorship. That's the most truthful way to say it. So the survey is never a 100% democratic thing. If 51% of the members want to race the F1 race at COTA, we're still not doing that.
51% of the people are wrong.
Exactly right. So in that case, the dictator would override the will of the people. So no, it's not a democracy, but it is meant to be a guide. And sometimes, it's so clear what people are asking for and what they want that we go in that direction. Of course, I mean, what would be the point of the survey if we didn't use it? So it would be pointless. But again, it doesn't mean that everything that everybody wants is exactly taken. It's more of I'm looking for overwhelming trends. We're looking for ideas, that kind of thing.
And I suppose with the increased number of people that took part in Majors 24 this year, obviously you can't be everything to everyone. But what sort of volumes of responses would you expect given response rates from previous years?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I shouldn't be surprised that survey take rates are low. But we've had about 300 people take the survey so far. That's over 5,000 people that it was mailed to. That is by far the most survey respondents we've ever had, and that is because we included the Majors 24 drivers and who we would call ringers in the survey this year.
How will you provide results and insights from the survey to the members once you've collated everything?
Well, we'll probably talk about it here. I'll have a blog post for sure. The second bit of the survey will be coming out later, actually very soon, within a week or so. And that'll just be going to people who have participated in a major series race this year, not including the Majors 24. So people who have participated in anything else will get a schedule survey for next year to kind of indicate their preferences on what tracks and cars we run, that kind of thing. But for the general questions, the vibe of the series, I'll break that down and generalize it and let everybody know what the responses were via a blog post is usually how we do it.
Anything else you wanted to say to people who are listening about the survey?
Yeah, well, hopefully do it if you haven't. We do value your opinion for sure. We want to know if we're moving in the right direction. And like I said, the open-ended questions are the ones that really get me. I like to see your thought-out responses to how things are going, what you'd like to see in the future, etc. We really do value the input. As a matter of fact, Garen, as you know, I'll share a lot of the direct responses in the competition committee Discord, but a lot of them are just really good ideas, and it helps us to build what we're doing for the next year and beyond. So
and please don't take advantage of the fact that there's no language filter.
Exactly.
Thanks for that rundown on the survey there, Mike. We also had a couple of questions that came in from the questions channel on the Discord. Stu was looking for a bit of a preview of the next round and what to expect from the car track combo. Now, I've never driven that car or track before, so I have absolutely no idea what to expect. So I think Stu's looking for, what sort of racing is it going to be? Is it going to be wheel to wheel with lots of cautions? Is it going to be more of a endurance style event? Yeah, what can we expect from the next one?
Right. So the World 100, one of, if not the largest dirt late model races in the world at Tony Stewart's Eldura Raceway. The way our dirt rounds, especially the dirt oval rounds, have gone historically is the heats are real clean. There's, we're talking 8 to 10 cars on the track trying to qualify for the next portion of the round of the event, and racing is pretty clean. If we have cautions on, they're limited. I intend to have cautions on with caution laps not counting in all phases of the race this year. One thing that will be a little bit different is, and it will be more in line with real world, but tweaked for the majors a little bit, is they use qualifying points throughout the week at Eldora, where you race every night, you earn Q points, and that sets you up for your grid position in the actual heats and LCQs for race day. In our case, we will use the heats and LCQs as race points for the main. Historically, during dirt rounds, we've always had the heats and the LCQs and then the main, which we will still have, of course, but the only drivers who race in the main are the ones who qualified. The way it's going to work this year is everybody will have a main. So it just may not be the A main. So whether you're knocked out in LCQ or wherever you're knocked out before the A main, you will still get a spot in A main. Everyone will get a 100-lap feature. The compromise that we're going to do with that, though, is, and the mistake that we've always made from Weedsport a couple years ago is, it's the Voldemort of the majors, I know. But that which shall not be mentioned, we always have too large a field in the main, and it ends up being an absolute dog crap show. Most people who run the majors don't run dirt regularly. It's a difficult discipline. Just getting yourself around the track, car control wise, is enough. And you put, 28 other cars on the track at the same time, and it's real difficult to the point where it's just caution, 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 caution. But again, like I said earlier, we found that in the heats, they're typically really clean. So we are going to have a 20-car A main instead of like a 30-car A main. So that'll make it much more difficult to make the A main. But again, everybody's going to get a main. So it'll make the competition tougher to get into it, which is actually going to be cool and fun. But if you're left out, you're not left out in the cold. You still get a 100-lap main.
And still plenty of points to fight for.
That's right.
And since it was Stu that asked the question, yes, I still have let the 115 car pass. I think it's burnt. I think it's burnt into my screen, Stu. So yeah. Sorry, that's an inside joke between those of us that were there and suffered through it. Thanks for sending in the question, Stu, and thanks for giving us that rundown there, Mike.
I'm going to flip the script on you a little bit here. I know that it's still 6 months out, but we've had a lot of questions and interest in the MEC. So since that's really your baby and something that you're taking hold of, I wondered if you might answer a couple questions from a driver about it. Okay, cool. In the Discord, Jared asked a few things, and here we'll just rifle them off. Can anybody who qualifies be selected to race, or will we have to declare a team roster to choose from? How do you set your roster for the race?
Okay, so it'll be run the same way that Majors 24 is done, but on a race-by-race basis. So you won't have to declare a roster for the entire season before the season starts. But at the registration deadline for each individual race, you had to have your list of drivers, which will be up to 4, is what we're going to allow for MEC. You need to have those decided by the close-off of the registrations, which will be 48 hours before the green flag time.
And along with sort of team formation type of question, our class selection. So in the Major 24, you can pick any car within a class. For this series, since it lasts more than one round, do you have to declare a specific make or specific car within the class, or can that be variable throughout the 5 rounds?
So we'll do it the same way that we did for the Majors 24, in that you can qualify and race any car within the class for that round. And you will be able to change from one car to another, from one round to another. And there's two specific reasons for that. One is this series is going to run across 4.5 months. There's at least one, if not two, iRacing builds that are going to occur, and who knows how many updates that are going to happen. So whether a particular car gets nerfed, be that on purpose or otherwise, or becomes just fast compared to everything else, it'd be really unfair if somebody made a decision 3 months earlier to run a particular car and then suddenly some change that iRacing brings in just means that suddenly you've got no chance of even making top split. You're just completely hobbled by it. So yeah, that's why we'll be leaving it open to be able to change cars from one round to another. And from a logistics perspective, as far as qualifying in a car or having cars from one or different cars within the class from one race to another, it's just an extra thing that, we'd rather not have to really police or audit from one thing to another. We'd rather focus on some other areas.
And finally, he asks, can a driver be in both car classes?
So from one round to another, you will only be able to register for one team. That does not stop you from running for one team in round one and then running for another team in a different class in round two. However, you will not be able to run for two teams in the same event, even if those cars end up in different splits. Having said that, there will also be an extra restriction where you will only be able to run for two teams within the series. Now, it's only 5 races, but that's just to stop driver shopping and teams that have several cars from their stable pooling different drivers together towards the end of the season to make a particularly strong team. They'll still be able to do a little bit of that, but yeah, once you've driven for a second team, that's it. You can't then move to any team except for those two that you've driven for. So yeah, hopefully that answers that one. One car or one team per event and a maximum 2 teams across the series. And by team, it'll all be tied to the team ID within iRacing. So yeah, you won't be able to just change the name to something else or to match the name of something that you've already run. It will be based on the team ID.
Yeah, I think we'll actually include Team ID in the team registration for that event and then probably for the Majors 24 going forward as well. I think that makes a lot of sense because then it gets rid of the shenanigans with team names being slightly different, et cetera. So that's all the questions on MEC so far. But again, it's 6 months out. Going back to the survey, one of the reasons that I didn't have the schedule or the track selection piece on this portion of the schedule is because I wanted to get the feedback of all of the drivers who race with us, whether that's our regulars, our loyalists, the people who really make the majors, the people who race just 1 or 2 races a year, or the people who race just the Majors 24. I wanted to hear from all of them, but I wanted to know who I was hearing from, if that makes sense. So I wanted them to segregate themselves, tell me which type of driver they are. And so for the people who race just 1 or 2 races a year or just race the Majors 24, one of the questions was, how can we make you a series regular? What will turn you from just this 1 race a year person to somebody who races with us all year long? Because that's really something that we want to continue to do, is to expand the number of people who do what we do all year round and really enjoy what we do. And probably unsurprising to you, but a huge number of the people who are the quote-unquote Majors 24 drivers said, well, the MEC is going to make me do that. So I'm confident to say there's more than 1,000 people who are super excited for this series. I'm expecting the questions to be nonstop between now and then.
We're happy for them to come in, so please send them into the Discord.
If you go to the Substack link that we send out, there's absolutely a discussion thread on each podcast or blog post or whatever, so you certainly can, but the Inside the Majors channel is your best way to go.
Yeah, well, checking that daily, but I will start checking the comment section underneath the podcast as well. Feel free to send things through regarding MEC or anything to do with the regular series. The plan is to try and do this podcast twice a month. That's every couple of weeks. The drip feed of information for the next few months will be regular, and feel free to send questions in and we'll answer them as best we can as we're getting closer and closer to it. Okay, so after this message, we'll be talking with the current Atlantic Sportsman leader, Tom Guest.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Somebody, anybody, really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
This week's driver interview is with our current sports silver leader in the Atlantic Division, Tom Guest. Having completed only part-time campaigns the last 2 seasons of the Major Series, Tom has been present towards the front of all 5 rounds so far in 2024. Finds himself at the top of the standings for the sportsmen's, both silver and bronze. I began our chat by asking Tom what he thought his highlight of 2024 had been so far.
Probably the ability to be available for most of the rounds, even though my work schedule's probably pushed me further than it has the last 2 years when I've been a bit part player, I suppose. This year I've been able to get practice rounds in before I go away, get back and really cram some practice in, and yeah, just being available to it, just being a bit more committed to it, I suppose. I've had an upgrade in some parts, and it's helped me get connected better to the rig, and just being available for it, and that's helped me be up the sharp end, I think.
You've been racing with the majors for the last 3 years. Can you remember what led you to joining the Major Series Championship?
Yeah, it was when I first started sim racing, maybe just before the lockdown. I met up with a mate of mine online who got me into it, and he was racing with JWR, James Wingfield Racing, who are around the UK and the world. They set up casual teams for iRacing special events and do other little racing bits and pieces. A few of them are real world racers. It was with Sam Harper, Ed Shelley, Gary Thomas, and some other dude. Bob, Space Gun Bob. Nice fun.
Never heard of them. So that's where you got your start, but what's your go-to style of racing or your favourite car on the iRacing service?
That's a toughie, man. Favourite style of racing? GT racing. I like GT3, GT4s. Recently, I've predominantly been in the Ringmeister series doing officials and the NECs as well. So sort of the digital VLN. I do all sorts of stuff. I've raced the GR86 for a giggle as well. I do like the slower cars. I do like closer racing. But then also take it up to the top bracket. I really do love the Acura in the hypercars. I don't know. I'm an all-rounder. I really am an all-rounder.
Did you race in the Majors 24?
I did. I raced this year, and I raced last year as well. Last year we got a 3rd. This year we got a 4th. But yeah, there was another great experience. We really put in a lot of effort. My teammates put in a massive effort with setups and practice and qualifying tips to get us over the line. And yeah, we had a really good event. Again, a story to tell for everyone, as the 24 is. It's a really good giggle.
You race for Fusion Simsport, which is derived from NRG and Forge, both teams that to be familiar to a lot of the Major Series stalwarts. How did you find that team?
Well, again, that team I found again through that same race, that same 24-hour race that JWR set me up with. Those guys convinced me to race in the majors, and from racing in the majors and jumping into their sort of Discord, me and Adam, who got me into this and does all our streams and stuff, shout out to Adam Preston, we founded a little race team called Co-Action Simsport with the idea of streaming and racing people that just started, people that were looking for teams, and it ended up that we got drawn into a team ourselves with NRG, and we've been there and happy since we've been racing now.
And outside of sim racing, what forms of racing do you enjoy watching or being part of?
All sorts, basically. I'm a real life karter. I started karting about 7 years ago, sort of by accident, at a Christmas party. And about a year after that, I was going for a national championship. I've won several, participated in several team championships, and done the 24-hour British race, which is part of the 24-hour World Karting Series. We finished, I think, 11 overall, and I think we finished 6 in Clubman with our own car, which is really cool. But yeah, I enjoy watching karting. I enjoy watching GT racing, but probably MotoGP is probably my go-to for watching. MotoGP 2.
As far as the karting is concerned, you get involved in the mechanical side of things as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It became apparent to me after getting in as an old man and dominating an indoor scene that the karts really weren't what you want. And having researched it a bit more and found Rotax engines and geared KZ150s, I sort of took the plunge and bought myself one of the fastest race carts that you can get. I got a DD2 125. My friend James and myself, we went halves on that. We built it up ourselves. We got the engine serviced. As far as I'm aware, it's probably one of the quickest in the UK for a DD2. There's not many of them about. We like to mess about on that. It's due a full service, to be fair. I need to get it out of carry.
So as somebody that does both real world and sim racing, how do you find the crossover between the two? Is it as realistic as those of us like me who don't do real world racing would like to believe?
When you get into a good race with equipment that gives you good feedback, with people that give you the same sort of respect that you would deserve in real life where it's dangerous, especially in open wheel racing with the karts, with the pro karts and the DD2 that I race, there's an unwritten rule. Like, you look at each other going up the straight and you're like, yeah, we're not going to touch wheels. There's a real respect given. On the digital side, in the virtual side, that respect is not always given. And the further up the standard of leagues you go, like the majors, where people pay for their stuff and they pay to be involved and they practice, they have to do minimum practice, the crossover's pretty close. I mean, the fact that you got the strategy in the rain now as well, that helps. But the most intense I've had on the virtual world has definitely been a Daytona 500 2 years ago with the majors. I've been in close situations in karts and in a touring car with the mixed classes around Brands Hatch. And the race I had for the majors, where I came third, was probably the most intense race I've ever had, real or virtual. So the crossover is there if you're willing to, up your quality and give a little bit of respect. The crossover is definitely there.
Leading the sports championship at the moment, what's the goal for the rest of the series? Are you confident in maintaining the lead in that?
My work schedule is mad, like proper mad. I'm flying up and down the country into Europe sometimes as well. It's difficult to get back to West London and get on the rig and do the time, but I have the Fusion SimSport team around me now who do all of the practice, all of the setup tweaks. They know how we all like a car. And I get back on a Thursday or Friday. I can smash my minimum laps in on a Monday before I go. I get back Thursday, Friday. The setups are there ready for me to test. So I'm going to be at every round that I can be. I'm looking to, finish podium or, well, let's be honest, I'm looking to finish fucking top. I'm looking to win the Sportsman Championship and get a goddamn couple more coins because I've only got 2. I should have had more. And yeah, I'm looking a bit light on the coin side. So yeah, I'm going for coins, Gavin.
And there's a rumor out that you might be looking for a new keyboard.
Gotcha, man. We're going to gloss over that. When you go from real racing to sim racing, the crossover's real. I've had breakdowns in a 24-hour race. I've had heartbreaks of punctures when I should have had podiums. We've had engine blow-ups in the Jag. A couple of weekends ago on the Nurbo 24, we were leading by 4 minutes and we got smushed out. The very next night, I could have podiumed the Speedway 500, having sat by myself with Garen up the top split and having to draft good people and bad people and avoid madness. Going into the Green Free to Go, my keyboard decided to update full screen and I just went headlong into turn 3. Thank fuck I didn't take anybody out. But yeah, the crossover's real. That hurt me more than, well, as much as any real mechanical crash or malfunction I've had that's lost me a race in real life. And there's been a few of them over the past 6 or 7 years. Yeah, I'm not looking for a new keyboard, mate. I just unplug it. Thanks for...
So good luck for the rest of the season, Tommy. Thanks for giving us a bit of time here on Inside the Majors today. All the best for the rest of the season and look forward to seeing how your progress goes.
Yeah, thanks, man. I just want to say to the people listening, the Majors is probably one of the best series that you can get into for sim racing. The diversity and the quality of the racers. It's people that pay for their gear and pay to race. So they pay for a decent experience. It's a decent place to be. Just a shout out to the Fusion boys who do all the setup. Like Brian, Chris, all the Forge boys that do all the oval stuff for us that I have no clue about. Shout out to Adam, my stream monkey. Shout out to Ed, out to Gary, and out to Space Camp Bob. You make it all roll.
Okay, so now we're going to do something quite new, something a bit different, something that I've never done before. This week I was sent a pair of sim racing gloves by the good people at Sudspeed. This is the first pair of sim racing gloves, specific sim racing gloves that I've ever used. In the past, I've always used either cycling gloves, motocross gloves, dirt bike gloves, that sort of stuff. So yeah, we're going to give these a bit of a road test, for want of a better term, given that it's sim racing. the first impression is taking these gloves out of the pack is they're really, really light, much lighter than any sort of gloves that I've used before, which is probably a reflection of the fact that these are designed for sim racing rather than using outside. So that's the first thing that really jumped out at me. The sublimated design is really, really cool. One of the other things that jumps out at me straight away looking at these is that the seams of the glove are on the outside. Now, in certain respects, it kind of gives it a slightly unfinished look on the edges of the seams, but I think I can see why it's been done that. If I turn these inside out, which I'm doing here, there's no seams on the inside. So unlike the gloves that I use up until now that look really quite refined and finished on the outside, there is a number of grooves and ridges from the seams that are on the insides of the fingers, whereas this is all on the outside. So I imagine if I slide my hand into this, that, the feel on the inside is very smooth and very refined and very, very finished. So again, I think the guys and girls at Sudspeed have had a proper think about the actual use case of this and thought, well, much better do it that way than trying to worry about the aesthetics. So the actual functionality of it is much, much better. So that's really cool. Looking at the palm and the inside of the fingers, they've got these grips, which they've done a really cool thing. They're actually in the shape of the Sudspeed logo, the SS logo, which is a really nice touch. So just running my hand along them, they feel like they're providing quite a lot of grip. And we'll see how they go on the wheel when I do the actual road test here in a minute. And also the index finger and the thumb have a little patch on the end, which makes it compatible with touchscreens. Now, I use an iPhone for the dash on my rig. So having gloves that's compatible with the touchscreen for that is going to make some difference for me in being able to use that. So that's really cool. The fit, I've got really quite big hands. So this is the extra large size. It's a little tight for me, but I think they're planning on expanding their range to a 2XL as well, which might be better for me. But still, having said that, the stretchiness and the fabric of the glove does mean that the feel is fine. So that's pretty cool. You could probably get away with some slightly different sizes here as well. And I really like that there's no Velcro straps. If you jump on the sudspeed.com website, you'll be able to see the way that these gloves are. They're much more like a real racing glove, and they've got the cuff, which kind of extends to just beyond your wrist, and the elasticized section around the bottom of your hand there. So yeah, I think that's a better solution than the elastic straps to tighten things up, which are on the sorts of gloves that I've used before. So yeah, I'm going to load the rig up here in a second, and we'll give them an actual road test. So back in a minute when I'm all set. Okay, so I've got the rig started and all set to go. So just going to drive out of the pit lane here. You may hear a few noises and things in the background. Yeah, so initial feel on as far as the grips are concerned, I feel like I've got a really, really good grip in the wheel. And I should say that I'm doing this test with the right-hand glove being a Sudspeed glove, the one that was sent to me, and the left-hand side glove is the glove that I have been using up until now. So yeah, it gives me a good direct side-by-side comparison as I'm doing this road test. So yeah, definitely the grips, the silicone-y, plasticky grips on the inside of the Sudspeed gloves do give me a much better feel of the wheel or control of the wheel. And certainly there's no slipping, no sliding, nothing other than 100% grip coming from that. So that's a real benefit. As I mentioned in the first part, the gloves feel really, really light. So as I'm driving around, I do feel like I've got a better feel of the wheel in general, not just the grip. Like that tactile feel or the sensation that you get through your fingers is much more like, it's not like you're not wearing a glove, but you certainly do feel more in touch with the wheel. I think the thinner material not only gives you that better feel, but I think is also going to be good for long uses. Obviously, I do a lot of endurance racing, so I think having this thinner, more breathable type glove is going to mean that my hands are going to sweat up a lot less, which can only be a benefit for me and my family or anybody else that has to come in contact with me between the rig and the shower. So yeah, changing the settings on my iPhone, as I mentioned, being the dash that I use is also really, really good. In the past with the other glove, I've got anything I want to touch on the screen, whether I want to change a display or look at a different screen, or even look at text messages that come through, you sort of have to hit it several times and just hope that at some point it'll pick up one of the touches from your fingers. But yeah, this one's first time, every time it works really, really well. So I can feel that that's going to bring a benefit as well when you're driving around. The price point of these gloves is certainly higher than the dirt bike ones that I've been using, but I've gone through several pairs of those, and whether that's coming apart, Velcro straps not working anymore, I think having a glove designed specifically for what I'm using it for is going to give me a better result, and I think last longer because they're obviously they're made to be able to do this. So yeah, I can see the Sudspeed gloves lasting through a length of time equivalent to several of these other gloves that I've gone through. I certainly did like the feel of them and I like the look of them. But yeah, I've gone through several of them for various reasons. So yeah, I can see their longevity and reliability benefits from this big glove there as well. So yeah, so overall, really good feel. Things like rotary or thumb switches and those sorts of things. I feel like I've got really good control over those finite buttons and things on the wheel, and yeah, paddle shifting feels really, really good. So better grip, better breathability. Yeah, it's a product that's designed for it, so it's probably going to give you a better outcome than stuff that I've been using. So yeah, that's my initial feel. Obviously, I haven't used for hours and hours and hours on end yet, which I will between this podcast and the next one. So check back in with how they're going in a couple of weeks' time. What I've given them serious long bits of use, but yeah, initial impressions is SwitchSpeed. Thumbs up. You've given a really good set of gloves. So yeah, first set of sim specific gloves I've used. I'd totally be recommending that somebody that's looking to get a new pair of gloves or get something that's a better option than some of the other options to go for. Yeah, these gloves have the things that you didn't know you were missing by going down the path of getting something like cycling or dirt biking gloves. And especially for those people that are overseas and your currency is quite strong against the Australian dollar, they're a pretty economical option to go for as far as sim racing glove market is concerned. So yeah, thank you to SwitchSpeed for sending me a pair of those gloves to try. I look forward to continuing to try for the next couple of weeks. SwitchSpeed.com if you want to check them out. I'll check back in a couple of weeks, give you an update on how they've gone as well. Thanks for sending them through, and we'll see how things go. So that brings us to the end of this edition of the Inside the Majors podcast. Thanks for listening. Please feel free to send any questions or comments through the Inside the Majors questions channel in the Discord. And look forward to catching up with you next time on Inside the Majors.